Happy June, everyone! Yard sales are popping up, ice cream trucks are coming out of hibernation, and I'm sweating my ass off. Currently, June is a lot of things to different people. For those still in school, it's freedom. For electric companies, it's the beginning of major profit increase. For my fellow gays, it's Pride Month. But I also like to think of it as the beginning of wedding season. Now, it was only my personal experience and opinion that prompted me to declare it the beginning of wedding season until I looked it up. According to my Google search, the most popular months to get married are from May through October. And out of those months, September is number one with 16%, followed closely by June with 15%. So, I was accidentally right. Awesome. While planning out what movies to watch and what videos to do when, I thought it'd be fun to, do some themed months. With my ever-growing list of generic rom-coms, I started to notice a pattern. A lot of them revolve around a wedding somehow. So I thought I'd have a grand time with my first theme being wedding month. It's super easy to find movies that fit this theme, so why not? And I would like to point out that I'm not married. I've never been married. I thought you could be trusted, but you cannot. This is Dorian, by the way. Say hi. Now say bye. He needs to get kicked out. My partner and I can't really afford a wedding right now anyway, so some of my opinions when it comes to planning a wedding and getting married come from the handful of weddings I've attended and a lot of TLC shows like Say Yes to the Dress. Truthfully, I've only been to 2 weddings as an adult, and that's partially because nobody in my family gets married anymore. And if they do, they quickly divorce. I think out of all 4 of my aunts, 3 of them have been married, and all 3 of them are now divorced. One of them twice. And even my own grandfather has been divorced twice and married thrice. We're not a family that stays together long, I guess. So my perception of marriage can be kind of skewed at times. But enough about my perpetually single extended family. Let's get into the drama and shenanigans that is my generic romantic comedy wedding month. I thought that I'd started off with a film that I've never seen the entirety of. I think I've only seen 1, maybe 2 scenes of this movie, and I was very young when it happened. Let's talk about Runaway Bride. Directed by Gary Marshall, who also gave us all those non-Christmas holiday movies and both the Princess Diary movies, and starring Richard Gere from Shall We Dance and Pretty Woman, and Julia Roberts, also from Pretty Woman, and My Best Friend's Wedding. So right away we see that both our leads have acted together before, and in a pretty well-known film to boot. My expectations were high because of the chemistry that I know these two can bring to the screen. The plot synopsis goes as followed. Having already left 3 grooms at the altar, Maggie Carpenter is branded the Runaway Bride by jaded city journalist Ike Graham. But after his facts are called into question, Ike races to Maggie's hometown to save his reputation and report on her upcoming 4th trip down the aisle, during which he's convinced she'll run again. Though he's there on a muck-tracking mission, Ike can't help but fall for the breathtaking heartbreaker. Seems like we're in for an interesting time. Let's dive in. We start off with Richard Gere's character, Ike Graham, frustratingly trying to find something to write about as the deadline to submit his column is due in mere hours. Don't feel bad for the bastard, because this is a regular occurrence. He's constantly calling his friend and possible coworker, I don't really know at this point, Fisher, bounce ideas off of to no avail. We'll meet Fisher later, so stay tuned. At a bar, Ike is striking out with a lady when she points out that his columns often bash women for having opinions or lifestyles that he thinks are inappropriate. After getting dunked on, another drunk customer begins to tell him of a woman that is the human reincarnation of a black widow. Interested and needing a story, Ike listens to the drunkard's tale, and we get this column. Why everyone is reading out loud, I don't know. Don't ask me.
No one blame me when every time I step out my front door, I meet fresh proof that the female archetypes are alive and well.
In ancient Greece, this fearsome female was known as Aramis, the devouring death goddess.
Oh, and this is Fisher. I thought that he was like the editor But no, we'll meet the editor later on. This being a big newspaper, the column makes its way to the hometown of said heartbreaker, Maggie Carpenter, played by Julia Roberts. Her friends are a little worried that she may be freaking out and are hoping to get to her before she reads it. But unfortunately, she did read it. And she just thinks it's a funny prank done by her friends. Like, first off, that's a pretty prank if it was true, especially by your friends. And second, she doesn't really take it well when she finds out the truth. After beating the ever-living crap out of this punching bag, Maggie sits down and writes a scathing letter to the editor of the newspaper. She basically accuses Ike of fabricating the whole thing. The letter makes its way into the paper, and people quickly turn on Ike, including his editor and ex-wife. Yikes. Ike thinks that maybe he'll get just like a slap on the wrist and continue on with his day, but his ex tells him that it's not that easy.
She sent us this list. Our lawyers say it's actionable.
If Maggie chose to go to court over the article, she may just win, and the newspaper isn't willing to risk that for just one journalist. So she fires him. Cue a scene of Ike spiraling into depression and eating sad Cheerios. Over in Maryland, I think, Maggie is ecstatic to see that the newspaper canned Ike. She celebrates with her current fiancé, Bob. Stabler again. We just saw him in Junior. He was more prominent than just SVU, I guess. Whatever, moving on. Ike talks with Fisher, and he has an in with a magazine that would be willing to give him a chance if Ike gets the scoop, the whole runaway bride situation. So off he goes onto his way to Maggie's hometown to try and save his reputation and job. You see, Ike has this vendetta against Maggie since she pointed out that he only used one source without fact-checking anything like a reliable journalist would do, and Maggie's upset with Ike because he, a goddamn stranger, just slandered her name all over his column for content. So Ike arrives and heads to Maggie's hardware store that she owns, only to find a note saying that she's at the hair salon. I would have thought, with her wedding being so soon, that she'd probably get testing her wedding look. But no, she's fixing her friend and owner of the salon's chair. This is Peggy, and I love her. Joan Cusack is a queen. At first, Peggy doesn't seem to recognize Ike until Maggie points out the article that they defaced. Now, with the perfect opportunity to get some petty revenge, the two convince Ike to allow Peggy to give him a haircut. While washing his hair, they actually dyed it a multitude of different colors. And I'm not even joking when I tell you I had my hair dyed very similar colors before. I don't think he looks that bad, but since, he's a professional, he's pretty upset. Thinking that she got her revenge and that'll be the last she sees of him, Maggie walks into her house to tell her family the news, only to walk in on them with who else? Ike. While she's talking with Bob in the kitchen, her dad and grandmother go on and on about her previous weddings and even let Ike borrow the wedding tapes. After a tense dinner, Ike goes back to his hotel room to watch the tapes. The first one was some wannabe rocker, and I honestly couldn't fault her for running away because she seemed kind of young, and it looked like a typical high school relationship. I don't think they were high school sweethearts. That shouldn't have gotten really that far. Anyway, Maggie hops onto a motorcycle and rides away. The second was a more traditional church wedding where she breezes right past the groom, dragging this kid along with her. And the third was some outdoor forced wedding where she ends up riding away on a horse. Very dramatic. The horse was acting pretty fidgety, so maybe it knew something she didn't. Did the third groom look familiar? That's because it's the drunkard from the bar. The one that gave Ike the scoop on Maggie in the first place. Anyway, now Ike has a mission to not only interview those closest to her and the townspeople, but also her other would-be grooms. First, he tries to reason with her once again for an exclusive interview by stalking her. Ike follows her into the bakery where they're making her wedding cake, and wow, is that Jackie from Roseanne? or you might also know her as Sheldon's mom from Big Bang Theory. After leaving there, Maggie heads to the high school where Bob works as the coach of the football team. Oh, great. Ike's there already. For some reason, even though he kind of trashed Maggie, Bob and like everyone else is just chill with Ike. I guess Bob is so convinced that he's the one for Maggie, he's not even worried that she'll run away again. Let's move on. Maggie seems to realize that there's a pattern here, heads to her first ex-groom. He's a mechanic now, but still a rocker at heart. Oops. Ike's already there though, and with a picture of Maggie at a concert, shirtless.
Maggie Carpenter, topless, in a public arena.
So I guess the guys are just sharing her nudes now. Great. She also breaks his heart once again by admitting that she never actually got their matching tattoo. It was just a stick-on. It's a bummer she didn't tell him before. He has that shit permanently on his body. Next, she heads to the local Catholic church to see the priest. Her second fiancé. Ex-fiancé. So I'll say it's safe to say that he's not really in the running anymore. He does tell her that he's over their breakup and that if she hadn't left him, he'd never have had found his calling.
This is clearly as God intended for it to be for me.
Oh, whatever. Maggie finally beat Ike to one of her exes, right? No. He's already been there and interviewed Mr. Priest here.
He only actually asked me one ridiculous question, and the rest really weren't so bad.
Later, we meet up with Ike talking to Maggie's grandmother, because he's just going down the list. Grandma here thinks she knows exactly why Maggie always runs.
It's not that she's afraid of the wedding. She's afraid of the wedding night. Innocent girls are terrified of the one-eyed snake.
She thinks her granddaughter's a goddamn virgin. I died here, literally, and I had to be resurrected. This is where I needed to pause the movie and catch my breath. Let's just brush past this and the fact that Maggie broke into Ike's hotel room to steal his notes. She agrees to let him interview her in exchange for some money so she can buy a much better dress. Why is she buying another dress so close to her wedding? It's literally like a week away. I don't know. I kind of thought this was weird, but like, what do I really know? I never planned a wedding before. While at the dress shop, the owner straight up refuses to sell this new dress to her because it'll be like a waste, I guess.
It's just a lot of money to spend on one of your dresses, Maggie. After all, you only wear them for about 10 minutes or so.
Like, whatever. Even if she does end up running away again, this lady still is making money, right? Like, she doesn't have a return policy, right? So what's the issue, lady? Well, Ike comes to the rescue and gets the lady to give her the damn dress. It's a cute little reveal moment, too. Skipping through some content, the two seem to be bonding a lot more. Ike is starting to realize that Maggie's life isn't so great, as she has to consistently take care of her alcoholic dad and is constantly bullied by her family and neighbors. For example, at this pre-wedding luau, the guests start their little roast. It's a traditional thing, I guess, to roast the bride and groom. Except they focus on Maggie.
May the groom's heart be filled with hope, and the bride's feet filled with lead.
May the pitter-patter of little feet not be Maggie's.
May the gifts be returnable.
You know the old saying, you're not losing a daughter? Well, I'd like to.
Real tasteful. Ike speaks up then, and instead of really digging into her like they all thought, he turns on the losers who were bashing her.
To Maggie's family and friends, may you find yourselves the bullseye of an easy target.
Embarrassed, Maggie runs out. Ike follows after her. There she confronts him for making people pity her. She'd rather have them just make fun of her. Ike, in turn, confronts her about the fact that she doesn't even want to marry Bob. He points out that most of what she has in common with Bob is just what Bob likes. She doesn't even know how she likes her eggs.
Scrambled with salt, pepper, and dill, same as me.
Right, I'm gonna have the garden omelet, egg whites only.
That sounds good. I'll have
Poached, same as me.
So if you haven't gotten it yet, Maggie kind of morphs her personality around her significant other. This is why so many guys like her, because they think she's the perfect woman. They think she likes everything they like. In reality, she had to kind of become a chameleon to please others. She even dropped out of school where she was going to become an engineer to take care of her dad and his hardware store. She's been shelving her dreams to help others for a very long time. However long later, Bob is holding yet another wedding rehearsal to help Maggie practice walking down the aisle without bolting. After one failure, Bob switches places with Ike to walk with Maggie. Good news is she makes it. Bad news, this happens. So I guess it's fair to say that Bob and Maggie are done. Good thing it wasn't in front of a whole lot of people, I guess.
I'm sorry. At least this time I backed out before the wedding. That's progress.
Now Ike and Maggie are making out again, and he also proposes in like the most awkward way.
You do have to go down the aisle with somebody.
But strap in, this ain't over yet. There's still like 20 minutes of the movie left. There's a little montage of Ike and Maggie readjusting her original wedding plans to fit in Ike and bonding even more. Ike has invited his only friends, I guess, Fisher and his ex-wife. Everyone is a bit more chill about the whole switching grooms thing than I would have thought, but I guess they aren't surprised when it comes to Maggie. Whatever. Just to rub salt in the wound, they invite Bob. Ooh. But it's all good because he meets his perfect woman. She's the editor's secretary that we met earlier, but I didn't say anything about it. The wedding is about to start, and here comes Maggie. She gives a little fake out. You know, we like a woman with a sense of humor. As long as she continues to make eye contact, she's golden. But here's her useless father with his camera flashed to blind Ike. Eye contact broken. Maggie starts to panic. The crowd starts to barricade the doors, which is hilarious, but there's still an exit available via a basement window and a convenient FedEx truck outside to act as the getaway car. You know what? I would have thought that would have been against the rules to have a passenger in a delivery truck, but I don't know. It was 1999. Devastated, Ike goes back to New York and is unfortunately blasted on the front of the newspaper. Kind of his comeuppance, but it's still kind of sad. Because of his previous article on the runaway bride situation, a lot of other reporters wanted to see if they would, actually tie the knot. Ike may be a depressed lad, but Maggie's taking this time to really find herself. She starts to sell her lamp designs to bougie furniture stores and even experiments with the type of eggs that she prefers. We love some good character development. After discovering herself, Maggie makes her way to Ike's city apartment to confess not only her love for him, but also her reasons for always running. But she turns in her running shoes, literally, to Ike and proposes to him using his own romantic wording from earlier.
I guarantee that we'll have tough times. And I guarantee that at some point, one or both of us will want to get out. But I also guarantee that if I don't ask you to be mine, I'll regret it for the rest of my life.
There's a cute little dance moment, a private wedding ceremony, because, the crowd was a little bit a part of it, and the end. Within the credits, we see a lot of other cute couplings, including Bob and that secretary, so I'm glad he got a happy ending. Runaway Bride is a quirky yet average film, and definitely fell flat when compared to Julia and Richard's more famous film together, Pretty Woman. However, despite its faults, I did enjoy some things. Let's get started then, before I get super negative. The main characters, while flawed, were very realistic and relatable. I like to think that this mostly was due to Julia and Richard's portrayal of the characters, but they are also fairly well written. Unlike many other mediocre rom-coms, I actually sensed some chemistry between the leads, even if I think it was highly inappropriate at times. Like, Maggie was literally engaged. Tone it down. Most of the supporting cast was pretty solid. I especially enjoyed Joan Cusack's performance as Maggie's best friend. The chemistry between those two was also very believable, and I really like seeing two women leads get together. And my favorite character was Bob. I think he was a well-meaning and well-written jock type, and I felt genuinely bad for him when the whole church makeout session happened. I knew it had to happen, I just didn't think it was gonna happen like that. The next thing is kind of weird. It's weird that it's in the movie, and it's weird that I noticed it, but there are a lot of twins in this movie, and I think one set of triplets, if I remember. Usually with filming with children, they use sets of twins because the amount of time kids can work is very, very limited. So by having twins, they can switch the kid out without it being obvious that it's a different child. But there were like 3-4 sets of twins, I think, just in the background of this movie. So like, what's in the water in this town that causes so many sets of like twins to be born? And on to the negatives of this film. Starting with the fact that Ike's redemption is too fast. This guy, this professional, well-known journalist, wrote a whole column based on one interview about a woman that he never met without fact-checking anything. That's bad enough, but to add to it, he used her real name and the town she lived. What? Because his jackass waits until the last minute to submit his work, he skips like 8 steps in the writing process, and his editor just lets him get away with it. She's definitely an enabler. I'm glad they're not together anymore. So after Ike gets canned, he decides to take revenge and stalk this poor woman just to get his shitty job back. He spends a good portion of the beginning of this movie not only being mean to Maggie, but women in general. So when he starts to grow a heart and stick up for Maggie, I don't really love it. Like, I'm not really here for it. It doesn't make up for the fact that he slandered her in a national newspaper, or at least a regional newspaper if it got back down to Maryland. And almost everyone in this town is so goddamn mean to Maggie. They all use her as like a verbal punching bag and a town-wide inside joke. Her family, especially her father, bash her for her running away so often, which I know he more than likely paid for these weddings, or at least the first one, but he has no right to make his daughter feel like crap. I loved when Ike stuck up for her, but I would have liked to see Maggie stick up for herself to everyone, not just one comment to her dad.
It's humiliating, and it's gone on long enough. You may not like that you have a daughter with problems, but guess what? I don't like that I have a father who's drunk all the time.
Besides the fact that Maggie was very much engaged when her romance with Ike started up, I only have like one other thing to complain about. The last wedding dress. I didn't really like it. I liked the one before it more, but that's just like obviously my personal opinion. And you all don't realize how tempted I was to head to my local thrift stores and try like buy an old wedding dress just to film in. Maybe one day, but I couldn't bring myself to spend that money. Let me start wrapping things up. I want to draw your attention to a wonderful nonprofit, Girls on the Run. Girls on the Run is a nonprofit organization dedicated to creating a world where every girl knows and activates her limitless potential and is free to boldly pursue her dreams. They inspire girls to be joyful, healthy, and confident using a fun, experience-based curriculum which creatively integrates running. And you see where I got the inspiration to pick this one? I will leave a link below to the organization. If you feel so inclined, please check it out and donate if you can. That's about it for this video. If you have any questions, comments, or opinions about this movie, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you want any other way to connect, I have my Instagram and Twitter linked in the description for your convenience. Please, whatever you say, be kind to me because I'm sensitive as it is. Bye-bye.